Lords of the Fallen released a somewhat rightfully mixed response in 2023. It was a beautiful game played by performance and balance issues among others. However, somewhere buried beneath those problems was a good game, and thankfully the devs put in the work to remove the rubble and let it shine through. After about 50 updates accumulating in the 2.0 release, Lords of the Fallen is now one of my favourite Souls-likes not made by From Software. The level design is a throwback to Dark Souls 1 with a large interconnected loop and some branching paths. The visuals are great, and it has some of the most satisfying heavy weapons combat in the whole genre. And now with a sequel well into production and the devs having learned a lot from the 2023 release, expectations for it are high. So with all this in mind, I'd like to talk about 6 changes I think the sequel needs in order to improve upon what I see as the original's weak points. One of the most universally accepted complaints about the 2023 release was the lack of enemy variety. If you've played the game, this one really doesn't need any explanation. You fight the same small roster of enemies like these axe boys over and over and over. There's not much more to add, so this was a quick one to cover. The game simply needs more enemy types for more varied combat encounters, and also to help make the world's areas feel more distinct from one another. If you jumped into Lords of the Fallen after playing Elden Ring, then something you likely missed were the weapon skills that you could collect and apply to your chosen arsenal. This is a mechanic that I strongly think Lords of the Fallen should bring over, as there's really no downside to doing so. It would increase build variety by letting players personalise their characters more, while also adding an additional tool to the overall combat layer. Another mechanic players missed from the main Souls games was weapon infusions. In titles like Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring, weapon infusions allow you to alter what stats your weapon scaled with or change the damage type it would dish out. Part of the fun was working out which stats weapons scaled best with using infusions, and then finally optimising your build to get the most out of it. And even if you wanted to use a weapon that wasn't optimal for your build, you could still infuse it to make it work a bit better for you, or change the damage type for use in certain situations. Lords of the Fallen in comparison has fixed scaling stats which can be improved but not changed. So as with weapon skills, bringing weapon infusions into Lords of the Fallen would again improve the build variety of the game. Continuing on the broad topic of weaponry, Lords of the Fallen suffers from a lack of weapon animation sets. In practice, this means that for the most part, weapons within the same category all share the exact same moveset. So a good improvement for the sequel would be for it to have a small number of movesets within each category, which can be enough to create gameplay variation within the same weapon type. For example, within the same category, one weapon could have a more horizontal focused moveset, while another could be more focused on straight ahead attacks. Again, this would improve the build variety and the replayability compared to the 2023 release. This is definitely the most niche improvement request of the list, but frankly, someone needs to stand up for all the shield bros out there, so it may as well be me. Shields in Lords of the Fallen really only have 2 abilities, block and parry. So apart from that, players mainly just use shields for making use of the rune slots for bonuses such as faster stamina regen. This is a common issue across the world of action games and certainly isn't unique to Lords of the Fallen. shields are frequently just treated as an afterthought that simply aren't that mechanically interesting to use. So with that in mind, a welcome improvement would be inherent offensive shield abilities such as bashing or ramming, so that shields become a more integral tool for the combat formula. I think a good example of shields being well done is in Dragon's Dogma 2, which mixes different shield abilities with a good physics system to make shields a fun tool to use for both defense and offense. This will probably be the most controversial change of the list, so of course it had to be saved for last. If you've played the game, you'll know it has a two worlds mechanic, two overlapping realms that you frequently have to switch between. Mechanically, this is mostly used to add light puzzle and platforming elements to the game, where you need to switch over to the Umbral realm in order to progress through an area, and then switch back again to the Land of Living once you're done. This is generally okay for the first blind playthrough when the puzzles and platforming is fresh, but the problem is on future playthroughs, these forced Umbral sections of the game quickly become a lot less interesting. For me personally, it just became a gimmick that wasn't adding anything positive to the game. It just became a chore I had to interact with in order to progress through an area. As replay value is important to me and is one of the major appeals of the Souls genre, this two worlds mechanic became one of the biggest negatives of the game to me, as it notably detracted from the enjoyment of my future playthroughs. And while less important, it also hurt the immersion factor to an extent, because the puzzle platforming sections sometimes felt, in a word, gamey. They sometimes felt illogical and hurt the feeling of you being in a real lived-in environment that makes sense. Now with all that said, the Umbral realm does have a second purpose which I do find more interesting, and that was creating a dynamic, ever-present danger. So while looking into the Umbral realm with your lamp, enemies have the ability to fully drag you into the realm by attacking you. This can happen anywhere at any time, so it adds a dynamic element to the gameplay, unlike the puzzle and platforming sections that are fixed and always the same each time you play. To me personally, this dynamic element adds a lot more enjoyment and replay value to the game compared to the puzzle and platforming sections. So in the sequel, assuming the two world mechanic still exists, I'd like to see the focus shift so its purpose weighs more heavily towards the dynamic threat element and less towards the puzzle platforming elements. So there we have it, 6 realistic improvements that I think Lords of the Fallen 2 needs in order to reach that next rank and sit alongside the From Software titles. And with the game slated for release next year, we won't have to wait long to see if the developers' views align with my own in terms of what the game needs. So what do you think? Do you agree with my thoughts, or are there other changes that you would want to see? Either way, take care. Until her embrace.